Hello, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Conexión Investor panel. We are so happy to see almost like 46 of you here watching us. Thank you so much for coming in this morning to be a part of this. My name is Elaine Gomez, and I'm one of the co founders of Latinx in Gaming. If you don't know what Latinx in Gaming is, we are a nonprofit dedicated to creating space for Latin American game industry professionals, enthusiasts, content creators, all anything and everything related to the games industry. So, welcome. So, today we are going to be judging six games from all over Latino America, and we have a few awesome guests with us today who will help us give feedback to these teams. And we will be selecting two teams at the end who will be winning a pool of $5,000 towards their game's development. So, first off, we have here Andre. Why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit of what you do?
Hi, I'm Andre Garcia. I've been making games for about 27 years. I started out on as a tester back in New Jersey on Game Boy, and now I'm a gameplay director at BioWare. And I'm really looking forward to see what everyone has to show today. Hi.
I thank you so much for being with us, Andre. I know that it was a little bit of a loophole to get you here, but we appreciate your time.
Yeah, no, it's super exciting to be here. I'm glad everything worked out.
Awesome. And Jorge, why don't you introduce yourself as well and tell us a little bit about what you do?
Sure. So I'm Jorge Castaño. I'm from Colombia. I've been in the gaming industry for like 15 years, approximately. I teach game design and game production at the university in Medellin, and I work as a senior project manager at Unity. So I have like both sides of the spectrum, like both the production and the game design.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for being here too, Jorge. I'm sure that the teams are going to appreciate all the feedback that we can give them, and I'm sure they're super excited to also present to the rest of the community. So thank you both so much for being a part of this with me. And for those of you who do not know what I do on the side, aside from being part of Latinx and gaming, I'm a game designer at Brass Lion Entertainment. We are just a studio primarily based on people of color, and we're making stories that are diverse and working currently on an action RPG that I'm really excited about. Hopefully, we can share soon in the next couple of years, really. Alrighty then. So, the first team that we have today who will be showcasing their pitch is from Guatemala. Her name is Ruth Garcia, and their team's project is called Hypnogogia.
Hello, my name is Ruth Garcia and this is Hypnagogia. It's a game for PC. You can play it with keyboard and gamepad. Well, Hypnagogia is an adventure simulation game with multiple endings in which you play again and again the same day over and over in the regular day of Rafa. He's a doctor in Latin America, an exploited doctor. And the gameplay, it's kind of like Surgeon Simulator meeting Night in the Woods in 2D graphics and the third world setting. So what's it about? Well, you move Rafa around and you can also move his hands. And you start early in the morning. You have to get ready for work. And once you're ready, you go to your work, you work at your horrible work. But you see, Rafa, he's a third world doctor. So in the hospital he works at, there is a lot of patients, and not everyone is going to get the medical attention they need. So it's Rafa's call to decide which patient receives medical attention and which one doesn't. And for that, he has to use his medical tools and do decisions and do paperwork running all over the hospital. And once he is done working at his horrible work, you walk home just to find Kayla, his wife, really happy about every single problem in this couple's life magically fixed. So no matter how hard you try to sabotage Rafa and Kayla, there will always be a good ending. Everything gets fixed in the most absurd way. And so yeah, there will be a lot of endings for this thing, except for one ending, the real ending. And you see, hypnagogia means the instant between being awake and being asleep. So what happens is that everything happened in the instant between the awake and the sleep of Kayla. And the real ending, the player has to unlock all the endings to unlock this real ending, the only bad ending, in which he finds that actually Kayla has fell off the roof and she's now struggling between life and death. And so he rushes her to the hospital and tries to save her with, well, everything you have learned through the game, but nothing works. So everything that happened in the game happened between this instance between Killa being alive and being dead, basically. But I want this ending to be really, really hard to get. So now I'm gonna show you a little gameplay of this game. So here is Rafa getting ready to work. He's preparing himself breakfast. And I know that this mechanic of moving his hands around allows for a very creative gameplay. So you can decide to do whatever you want to do. You can dress for work or don't dress for work, go in your own this. Or you can do breakfast or don't do breakfast, but don't blame me if you are starving at your work. Here he's preparing himself an egg, but he forgets to add the oil, so the egg is stick to the pan. Now he has to wash it before he prepares a new egg. And this is just an example because I want to add so many new foods, vegetables, healthy food, junk food. So everything he eats affects the way he performs at work. Maybe eating healthy gives you more stamina to run around the hospital, or maybe drinking coffee makes him run faster. He can also drink alcohol and go drunk to his work. And every single thing affects. So it's not only about the food, it's also about how he performs at work. So he can use his stethoscope and he has to put the diaphragm of the stethoscope in the right place so the player can feel in his gamepad the vibrations of the heart. And he can know if the patient is agitated or maybe the low rate is very slow or maybe he has a heart problem. And I want to implement so many medical tools in this thing because the faster you attend the patients, the more patients you will be able to cure. And there are gonna be some patients that will unlock secret endings. And also, if you heal the patients really quickly, there will be secret endings as well. I want the gameplay to be like really, really flexible to allow the player to do as many crazy things as he can think. And I want to reward the crazy thinking of my players. So here you will see Rafa tinkering with the clock. And when he tinkers with the clock, he can adjust the time. So he can make himself a healthy breakfast, which is really time expensive. But still, if the player knows this trick, he can tinker with the clock and adjust it so he can arrive really early to his work. Also, Rafa can talk with the people around, but that's not the main mechanic of this game because I want the player to be able to affect the world with his actions and not with his words. The dialogue part is just to give the player a little more information about where he is and what can he do. And yeah, that's the gameplay of Hypnagogia. Let's talk a little bit about unique selling points. Well, you control Rafa's hands to use items and discover more than 20 different endings. And I know that this mechanic of moving Rafa's hands around is really flexible and will allow me to implement even more endings. Also, there is this secret ending that I was talking to you about earlier that I am hoping that people will find really hard. It will struggle to find because this will turn the game into maybe an urban legend, being very optimistic, and maybe creepypasta material. Also, you get to experience a regular day in a third world medical stuff, which is really shocking because uh, here in Latin America, or at least here in Bolivia, where I live in, um, the doctors are not really that appreciated, and they have to do a lot of heavy work and a lot of paperwork, and they have to do overturns, and they are sleepy, and it's like very real what happens here. Also, there is this colorful vectorial 2D graphics that are very characteristic to Hypnagogia. About the development timeline, I've been developing Hypnagogia since 19th February. I still don't have an early demo, but I will have one on August. We are now at June. In January 2022, I'll have a vertical slice. And if everything goes right, the game will be releasing at March 2023. There on the bottom, you can see a link to the repo of Hypnagogia. You will see that I am adding new features every week. I am a very constant developer in this. Oh, so the business model. I'm planning to sell Hypnagogia at $9.99, but a sure thing it's a negotiable price. A target audience is simulation and adventure lovers, and there are some games that I thought that might be kind of alike Hypnagogia. Night in the Woods, that is a clearly inspiration to the game. Surgeon Simulator, although it is 2D, this is more like 2D, and Surgeon Simulator has some more co-op mechanic, but this is more like a point and click mechanic. And also Cocoon Simulator, because there you can use a lot of tools, and in Hypnagogia you also can use a lot of tools. So my team, well, I am a solo developer, but I'm willing to find a crew if I have the money to pay them. I am a professional game developer. I've been working professionally more than 5 years. I am a gameplay programmer, but I am also a generalist because, as you can see, I have done everything you have seen in this part, including the music. I am currently working at Peer Reality. I'm on Rabbit Studio. I have worked on so many Bolivian studios before because I have been being offered with better offers, better opportunities. And so I can teamwork with a lot of teamworks in these two companies. I am also a winner of VIX Innovation Prize here in Bolivia. I won with a Oculus Quest game called La Sombra del Desierto. Also, I am a winner of Argentina Game Jams tournament. That was last year. We were a team of 5, and we never met before. So believe me, I can teamwork. And we produced one game each week for a month. You can see there in the bottom the games I have worked in before. Oh, so let's talk about the budget. I'm gonna need this stuff. $6 an hour. I know it's a low rate, but here in Bolivia, that's not very unrealistic. You see, this game is not based. It's not totally fiction. My husband, he's a doctor, and he was earning $1 per hour, and now he's doing better. But I know that $6 for my country is a really high rate. So that's why the low rates, the salary rate might seem kind of low to you, and the total will be this cipher in the bottom. So yeah, that was it. If you want to contact me, please by all means follow me on Twitter or write me an email. I am looking for financing, but if I don't get financing, I'm gonna finish this game on my own. because it's a really important game to me, and I don't want it to stay in the dark. So if I don't get financing here in 2 years, probably I'm gonna need a publisher. So by all means, if you either wanna publish my game or phone me, please contact me. And thanks for your time.
Well, thank you so much, Ruth. That was an incredible pitch. I am surely inspired. So now we can open up the floor for our panelists. Jorge and Andre, please feel free to give Ruth your feedback, your first impressions, and I will reserve mine until you guys are all done with yours.
Sure, Jorge, do you want to go first, or? Oh,
Oh,
sorry.
Jorge, you're mute.
Maybe push to talk is on.
Maybe, yeah. It's muted still.
Yeah, I can start while you figure out your tech problems. That might be the best thing.
Yeah, thank you, Andre.
Yeah, sure. Hi, Ruth. This is super exciting. I think your passion for this and its personal connection to your life is clearly evident, and I think it helps a lot. I really got a Papers, Please vibe from it as well. I don't know if you played that a while back, but sort of that the mundane nature of what Rafa has to go through really reminds me of the character from Papers, Please, as well as the difficult decisions you have to make or potentially have to make from a narrative perspective. Um, when I think about your gameplay, I think there's a lot of really, really interesting things. And since you're going for sort of the Run Lola Run or Groundhog Day kind of vibe with it, I would encourage you to slowly introduce the player to the ever expanding nature of your gameplay. So the first day, only a very few things are available, and you may already be thinking about this in that light. But basically, bring players into your game a little at a time, and each day could potentially unlock more things for Rafa to do, more things for the player to do. So they're not presented with such a vast wealth of options at the beginning. Um, and I think doing that, you could also get your way to getting to the true ending, right? Because you would have a metric to track how the players are doing each day and what buckets they're falling into to get which ending. And I think that's just fantastic. This is really really encouraging. It's a good thing to see on a Sunday morning, and I'm really impressed that you're just doing this on your own. This is good stuff.
Thank you a lot. Really, really useful advice. Definitely gonna implement those.
You hear me now?
Yes, Jorge, we
Okay,
can hear you.
perfect. Okay, I was saying that I think the pitch looks great, Ruth, and the game looks really, really interesting. I love these kind of games. I mean, the kind of like content that you can start not only to tell a story, but also to go like deeper into, human interaction and human feelings, and you can, be like as philosophical as you want. So I really love the idea. I had a question in regard to game design, regard to the game mechanics. Is there any kind of reward to the things that you do on a daily basis? Because the way I see it is like there are different endings, and then I have to, go through the whole day doing stuff like curing people and, day-to-day things for Rafa. But then, do I get something from that day that I could use for the next one, if you could say so? Or is it just, is the reward just the different endings, or is there something else?
Well, originally I was thinking just on the ending, an extra ending, kind of like annoy the player, and it's like you got out of 5 endings, and then he gets a new ending. It's like you got 5 out of 6 endings. It's like what? But what you said really inspired me. Maybe I could use that and unlock new things, like to encourage the player to keep playing.
Yeah, because that's one of the points that Andre said that could be like really, really interesting in this kind of games. Like imagine if you could start unlocking some of the newer mechanics like on a daily basis, and then you can get access to more material. But for that, and this is just an example. Please don't take it like to do on your game. But for example, I don't know, if I get my day on a like right, then I can put a point in strength and dexterity for Rafa. So now he can do his work as a surgeon better, and then he will get the better a better ending or something like that. So that will give like the curve of not only difficulty but also the curve of interest for the user, like a better experience.
Yeah, that's a very, very good idea. I'm gonna use that. Thank you.
Yes, I think that Jorge and Andre really honed in on what I wanted to share with you, which is really thinking about the player agency of it all. Like, if there is a way for the player to visually get feedback on what they got to do next, or to get encouraged to keep tinkering with things, the better it is, or the more likely it'll be that they'll keep unlocking all of those endings that you want them to unlock. And I think one of the things that I don't necessarily am telling you to do, but definitely explore it a little bit, maybe some visual feedback where the player can keep track of the things that they have tinkered with, so that they can understand what endings they have unlocked, whether that be like a map of a road or something like you had in your slideshow, or you had like the your dev roadmap. What if you would have something like that where the player can see, oh, these are all the things that I already messed with, these are all the things that I unlocked, and this is all the rest of the path that I need to go. That way they can visually see. I feel like visually seeing things is helpful, instead of trying to keep like a mental load or what you have and have not done. And I think that may be something useful there for you to explore a little bit as you continue to polish and iterate on the game. But overall, I think your concept is very clear, and you have been able to really communicate that idea of, this is all about actions and what I'm doing to interact with the world, versus narrative, or things that perhaps other people would think would be like the primary mechanic of a game like this, that it's 2D and point and click. It's usually like narrative, and there's a little bit of like nuance to like vague type of like themes, but you're being extremely clear with the way that you implemented your core mechanic, which is literally like QWOP. That's what it reminded me of. If any of you have played QWOP, where you have to press all the keys and you're moving the athletes like legs and arms around, it reminds me a lot of that. And that's really fun, right? To be able to just tinker and have a silliness of part of the game, also with like the seriousness of like having consequences of things that you eat and drink, things that you touch, and having that affect the world around you. So I think it's really smart design. It's also very like fresh and exciting. And I hope that you continue to explore the wacky things that could come about of interacting with things that have cause and effect with each other. I think that would be really, really neat to have more things in the apartment or in the hospital that you can interact with that have causes and effect. So it's just like, oh no, I broke something, and now I can't use it in my next day. Those type of things are like really exciting and very interesting, and could offer the player a very like dynamic and almost like an authorship type of experience, because everybody's play will be different, because nobody's going to do everything the exact same way. And I think that's like a definitely like a shining beacon for you in your game, is that everybody's play experience can be super unique. How can you take advantage of that uniqueness and that type of like spontaneous gameplay that will come about in your game world? But overall, like, really great pitch. Thank you so much, Ruth, for your time.
Thank you, guys. It was really helpful. My first time pitching.
No, you did a
Thanks
great
a lot.
job.
Thanks.
All right, thank you so much, Ruth.
Thank you, Ruth.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Okay, so next up we have team number 2, who will be the Forbidden Memento from Guatemala.
I'm Alejandra Gudel.
Hi, my name is Martin.
And I am Laura Tomat. We are developers of the Forbidden Memento. We are students of computer science engineering with a specialization in game development at Universidad del Valle de Guatemala.
The Forbidden Memento is a survival horror game based on the story of two brothers, Vitor, our protagonist, and Vittorio. As a curious horror fan player, you have to discover the mysteries behind all the strange things that have been happening lately. Through exploring and interacting with objects, you will live a frightening experience. But will you unravel the truth? Let's find out.
Hello everyone, my name is Alejandra and I'm representing my team, The Forbidden Memento. We're a group of students of Universidad del Valle de Guatemala who are currently studying computer science engineering with a specialization in video game development. We are confirmed by Laura Tomás, Martín España, and myself, Alejandra Udil. So let's start with a little bit of background. The game of the video game started as an assignment because we had to create a story, intrigue, horror-based that will be able to help us to fulfill some grade. However, as we developed the idea of the story, we decided that it will be a really intrigue game that people will be liking it, especially survival or horror fan base. So let's dig a little bit in the story. We have two brothers in our story, Vitor, who is our main character, and Vittorio, who is our villain. Both of the characters are brothers, Vitor being the youngest one and Vittorio being the oldest one. Their relationship is like any kind of brotherhood. However, Vittorio tends to bully him a little bit. And as the story goes by, we will be seeing some strange events that will be happening along the video game, and it is the main character's role to fill those gaps and try to find the answers that he is looking for. So let's talk a little bit about the information of our video game. The genre is survival horror game, and we plan to have it for an audience of mature plus 17, especially horror fans. Our main platform right now is Windows. However, we would like to expand to macOS as well. And let me tell you that this video game right now is still in its first stages. We only have the prototype, so our duration of the video game is yet to be announced, but we are planning to be setting the video game for a duration of an hour or so. So let's talk a little bit about the gameplay. The main goal about our video game is to discover the truth by discovering different clues or hints that will be appearing throughout the video game as missions. The camera is this first point of view where you will be taking the role of Vitor, and it's a single player campaign. And in the actions or mechanics, you will be doing the basics: walking, jumping, crouch. You will be having an inventory that will allow you to pick and drop objects. As well, you will be able to interact with those objects to see how you will be able to unveil the truth. So talking a little bit about the levels that we have in our game, the first one, you have seen previously, is just the introduction to the game, introduction to the story, to the characters, and how is the relationship of the brothers. The second level is more of the experience that Vitor will be having, experiencing the strange events, some spooky things, finding out what are these events being caused by. And finally, our third level will be the reveal of the story, the whole plot, trying to find out a little bit of why was this happening, and the player will be finishing the story. So taking a look to our development, we estimate that it will be taking about 16 months to fulfill the whole video game. We are currently in the prototype stages, and in the further months, we will be planning to develop our own assets, our own sound effects, polishing the following levels, completing some features that might be added as the game goes by, and as well fixing some different bugs that will be coming around. Also, well, we expect to launch this in December of 2022, so we're looking forward to it. So why us? We managed to create an immersive experience and sound effects as you are walking through the different levels of the game. Inside the house, you will be hearing some noises coming from upstairs, some laughing, that will be really creating an intrigue and terrifying experience for you. As well, the story that we could manage to create is really part of what is behind the video game, that you will be able to have some answers by fulfilling different missions, and as well to see why are these events happening. Also, the game provides a unique point of view because Victor, kind of a spoiler, is a person who suffers hallucinating schizophrenia. So you will be setting in this type of point of view and actually seeing how does the character is evolving with this type of condition and how is he behaving throughout the different levels. So let's take a look at our budget. Since it is still in our first stages, we don't have a really set budget, so we're open to negotiations. However, we would like to cover two main points, which is firstly, salary for each team member being that of about $25,000 per month. And as well, I mentioned previously that we would like to be programming and creating our own assets. However, is there anything that we are not able to fulfill, we would like to pay somebody else, for example, a graphic animator or a graphic designer that will be able to help us. So we will be having a different budget for that one. As well, that will give us an estimated of $40,000 for the whole project to be completed. And how are we going to actually revenue about this? Well, we plan to sell the video game around $999. And if we launch it via a platform, we will be having an estimated revenue about of $5 per copy sold. So we will be needing about 8,000 copies. This being because sometimes the platforms require some taxes or requires a different price for sales, etc. So let's take a look at our competition. We took our price into account based on these three games, which are kind of like our main competitors. This being said, because they have the same genre or sort of the same time duration to complete the game. However, our game still is unique because of the story. It really involves you in how does the character will be evolving as he plays by, and as well how will he be reacting to the different type of hallucinations that he will be experiencing throughout the different levels. And really, because well, Victor is such a unique character that will be evolving throughout the whole game, that will be really intrigued for the player to continue looking for it and looking how it will end up. So thank you so much. If you would like to have further notice, you can follow us, the whole team, via Twitter, and we hope to see you soon in December of 2022. Thank you.
Thank you, Alejandra. That was a great pitch. Alrighty, who would like to go first in the feedback round?
Andre, you go first.
Sure. What were you thinking was the sort of like, were you thinking first person camera, third person camera, and sort of like, could you give me an example of like one or two interactions the player could do?
Okay. For example, as I mentioned, the character will be having a condition which is schizophrenia. So in order for the player to actually perceive that type of experience, he will be looking through it, like literally, like if he was there inside the house, inside the forest. So the decision for this was based on it because of how will the surroundings will be set or played for him. So that's why we chose the first camera view.
Cool. And what do you think that Victorio or Vitor can do with? What do you think the player could do through Vitor to express some of the gameplay?
For example, as he walks by, he will be hearing his footsteps, and the camera will be as well like shaking from one side to another, which will be simulating as well like a walking, right? As well, if he approximates to a different object, he will be able to look at like if he was touching it with his bare hand. So he will be looking for different clues. For example, in the first level, Vittorio, our villain, asked his brother, the main character, to look for his charger. So what Victor has to do is to go like around the house, look for the charger, take a look at different places, and he will be as well grabbing different objects in order to looking for the right item to actually give it back.
Cool. I think a lot of what you're talking about sounds interesting from a gameplay perspective. Like, have you seen Phasmophobia?
Yes.
Yeah, I think some of their mechanics. I know that they're you're dealing with mental issues, and then they're dealing with ghosts and whatnot. But I think in terms of horror and the what I can understand from the game so far, I think there could be some interesting parallels between what you're trying to do and how you're trying to express the relationship between the two characters could potentially help you sort of like lock on to some mechanics that could expand the experience you're looking for.
Yeah. We have like one part of idea that was having like a horror thermometer, like a level bar that when he's experiencing that type of hallucination, that will be filling up, right? So he will be having to look for different items that will help him like to lower it down. So that's part of the implementation that we look forward to doing in a near future.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're mute again, Jorge.
What's happening with my computer? I have a couple of questions. So the first one would be, I'm not sure if you told us in the presentation. Like I do like what I saw in the video, but what's the story? I mean, what's the objective? What's the end goal of the game in terms of narrative?
In terms of narrative, is mainly finding out that Victor is having a certain condition, right? Because he will be experiencing without knowledge in this, like knowing that he's having a certain condition that makes him feel this way or makes him perceive something about his reality that way. So throughout the levels, he will be looking for that type of answers. Like he will be asking his brother, like, "Have you seen this? Have you?"
What?
Oh, no.
Am I frozen?
No, not you.
Okay.
I think it's Alejandra, yeah. Okay, we'll give her like a few minutes or a few seconds there to try to figure that out.
You tell me when you can hear me.
I can hear you. Your video is just a little lagged.
Okay. But yeah, mainly it's about Victor finding out how is he going to focus on perceiving what is real and what is not. And that's like the main goal at the end of the video game, finding out what it feels real and what it doesn't feel real. So that's part of the goal of the video game.
Okay. And how do you keep the user, the player, how do you keep him like attached to that story? Because if you look at other horror survival kind of games, it's like, okay, in Outlast, for example, you have to escape somewhere, or you have to escape the monster, or you have to investigate something. In this case, how are you keeping that player like focused on his story as Vitor?
Well, we have missions or what are the goals that needs to be completed in a specific level. So that's how the player will be knowing, oh, I have to go. I think will have to go this, or I think I will have to do something like that. So that's really like how we'll be planning to keep the attention of the player. Because if not, well, he will be just walking around and not having a clue what he will be doing, right?
Right. And perfect. And that comes to my second question, which is what's like the differentiator? What's your difference between your game and other horror games? So, again, as an example, like put Outlast, you have like a camera that the battery is run out, and then you have to rush into things, and then it turns the game into something completely different. Is there any other like item like that in your game, or how are you dealing with that?
Okay, I think I didn't mention it, but for example, our main differentiator will be that Vittorio isn't real. He's part of the hallucinations that Vittor is having. So throughout the game, he will be practically talking to a person that doesn't exist. So that's part of the intriguing and like spooky thing of our game that mainly will be focusing on our player. Finding out why is he doing this, because the player will be thinking, oh, like, why is he doing bad things to me? But eventually he will be finding out that it wasn't him, because it never existed. So that's our main characteristic thing about the game.
Right. And one last comment, I would look a lot at the VFX and sound, because that's like like a really important part of a horror game. So in your budget part, in the production timeline, just make sure that you have um, a person that knows a lot about VFX, a lot of SFX. I'm sorry. So you can make sure that the player, especially because it's a first person game, that the player is like inside the head of Victor in this case.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, I definitely agree with Andre. I'm sorry, with Jorge. The sound effects are really going to help amplify the experience. In any horror game, that's always the case. Music and sounds will definitely drive moods and will definitely clue in players to things that are going to happen or whatever is going on in the environment. So definitely that's going to be important. Um, when dealing with mental health, and this is now me talking as a developer. When dealing with mental health, definitely, I would definitely advise to consult with people who know about those things, because you want to be as mindful and as respectful as you can in portraying and communicating what schizophrenia is and what its effects are towards somebody. In this case, towards a character who doesn't even know perhaps that they have schizophrenia, and that unfolds throughout gameplay. So, one of the things gameplay wise that I would love to see, and I'm sure y'all would explore this, is the idea of how can you unfold side effects and things about how the character feels through the gameplay, and how you can slowly ramp that up. That maybe in the beginning of the game you don't feel it, you don't see those effects, but as the game progresses, things are starting to get a little bit more complicated. It's harder to navigate, it's harder to tell what's real and what's not, and all the things that are looped into schizophrenia, right? Because that is what's going to make, in my opinion, that's what I see your game as special, is that you're dealing with something that's a very real subject, and something that a lot of people don't understand what it means to have something like schizophrenia. And maybe with your game, you could really help bring awareness to that and be like, hey, this is our game is just a little insight into what that feels like and what somebody who has schizophrenia has to deal with on a day to day, right? So I think there's something special there. A game that I would suggest looking at would be Never Ending Nightmares. I don't know if you've ever played it or heard of it, but this developer does have issues with mental health, and they use this game to really kind of just to express their thoughts, to express how they feel when they're going through things. And I think that would be a good reference so that you could see how things transition, how things change. I think change is a really good like theme to go off in. How are things in the world going to change? Whether it's sound, visuals, effects on the camera, like all those things, I think are going to be your friend in trying to communicate how the character feels. Um, As far as everything else in your pitch, I think everything's very clear. The progression too, the ramping up from not knowing what's going on until you figure out the schizophrenia and all of that. I think that needs to be much more clarified. But you mentioned something about some type of bar. And I think that may be a good solution to try to help the player understand where they're falling in the spectrum. And it reminds me of Amnesia Dark Descent, where you have your insanity meter. And depending on where your insanity meter is, then your camera starts to do things and things start becoming really creepy. And I think that could be helpful because it'll cue in the player in understanding where are they in the spectrum of reality or what's going on around them. And that way they can figure out what is it that they need to do to slide that down or to slide it up, whatever it is that you would want the narrative to go in, right? But I do think that, as you mentioned it, I think it would be really helpful for the player. I definitely advise to try to explore that and see in playtesting how that brings about like player experience or player agency there. But overall, great pitch. Thank you, Alejandra.
Thank you all so
So,
much. Appreciate
sorry,
it.
Welcome.
as a last comment, I think Elaine's point is really important. And there's a game that I think did a great job in mental health issues, which is Celeste. And Celeste does a great job showing that, even though you have like the opposite, which is, the bad character, it's still part of you. And they explain that on a great way since the beginning of the game. And then you know that you're like fighting or competing against yourself, but at the end it's something that's still part of you, and there's that dark side that you always have to deal with. So I agree with that, and I will look at that game as a great example for telling that kind of mental health story.
Totally agree. All right, thank you so much, Alejandra. Good luck to the rest of the development team and say hello to the rest of your team members.
Thank you all so
Thank
much.
you.
I appreciate all your
Thank you.
comments.
You're
Bye.
welcome. Bye bye. All right, up next is team number 3, Wonder Stars. We have some fellows from Venezuela who are currently in Spain. So let's take a look at their anime inspired project.
I'm Andy from Paper Gas Games.
I'm Alvaro Rodriguez, game designer for Paper Castle Games.
And now I'm going to talk about our latest game, Wonder Stars. Wonder Stars is a turn-based RPG coming to PC and Nintendo Switch, where you make your own attacks by combining words and making your own fighting techniques. Join Ringo, a young martial artist, and Wolf, a mysterious scoundrel, as they explore the universe, looking for the pieces of the Wonder Star map in a story-driven roguelike adventure inspired by classic anime. Each run plays like an episode of a show, in which you will go through randomized maps and discover special events, fighters, NPCs, power-ups, and more. Let's look at the key features of the game. Wonder Stars is a unique word builder RPG with a character driven story told in a visual novel format. The art style is inspired by classic cell animation from the 80s and 90s. The game is also built to be replayable with roguelike elements, and one of our favorite features is that you can actually befriend your opponents to use their words and skill in battle. Let's take a look at the combat. In Wonder Stars, players begin by selecting an action word like kick or punch as a base, and combine it with other words from their collection for stronger results, like super or amazing to cause even more damage, or fire to add an element to the action. So you can get, for example, an amazing fire punch. Let's take a look at some gameplay so you can see how it works. Here we have our words. We're selecting punch, which is an action word, and then flame is an elemental word. Finally, wide, which is a modifier word that lets you attack multiple enemies at the same time. As you can see, both enemies receive damage, and this is actual gameplay. There are over 100 words to choose from, so you can imagine all of the possibilities. This combat mechanic is inspired by classic anime fights, where the characters call out their attacks in front of their enemies. We call it word building gameplay because it's similar to deck building gameplay. On top of word building, there are also special techniques, power-ups, and party members that give you unique words. All of this allows players to customize the way they play however they want. So what else can you do in this game? The Wonder Stars universe comes together in a constellation of worlds, home to all kinds of people, and you can explore each place you visit through the map system. Plan your routes however you want to make your way to the end goal, and discover many things along the way, such as cutscenes that move the story forward, opponents ready to challenge you, events where a short story will unfold and your decisions determine the outcome, NPCs that will offer friendly chatter and maybe a sweet reward if you're lucky, hidden treasures with money and useful items, stores and resting spots to give you a leg up the journey, and more. The story of Wonder Stars follows Ringo, a young martial artist looking for her long lost brother, and Wolf, a mysterious scoundrel running from his past, as they join forces in an unlikely partnership to collect the pieces of the fabled Wonder Star map. We wanted to merge gameplay and narrative, so the combat mechanics are also an important feature of the story. In the Wonder Stars universe, fighters use a form of fighting called kiai, which makes their physical actions stronger by saying the words out loud. This is inspired by the real Japanese term kiai, which represents the shouts in martial arts preceding an attack, like, yeah. Unlike most games, the story of Wonder Stars is structured more like a series. We really want to make you feel like you're watching an old school anime as you play, so instead of levels, we have episodes. Players will follow the characters and their adventures as the story unfolds with each passing episode. There are 10 episodes in total, and the story has already been written from start to finish. So let's take a look at the core gameplay loop. First, the player selects an episode and prepares their deck of words. When the episode starts, they will plan their route and make their way to the goal. The player will go through story events, dialogues with NPCs, and battles to improve their chances of beating the boss at the end of the episode. During fights, players will have to strategize to win as honorably as possible, which means not knocking down your opponents. Doing so will earn them extra word, ups, and honor points. After an episode is over, the player will spend the honor they earned by training and getting permanent upgrades that carry over to other episodes. When they finish an episode, they can play the next episode or replay previous episodes in hard mode, find new dialogues, and any events they might have missed. As you can tell by the art style, Wonder Stars is inspired by old school anime like Dragon Ball and Sailor Moon, to name a few. We grew up in Venezuela watching anime series like this, and we believe this game will resonate with a lot of anime fans. Anime has always been incredibly popular in Latin America, so we wanted to mix Latin American and Japanese culture in a way that we haven't seen before. So, who are we anyway? Well, we're four friends making homemade games. Paper Castle is an indie game studio founded in Venezuela in 2013. The studio consists of Rafael Cabrera, lead programmer, Alvaro K. Dominguez, game designer and lead artist. Stein Van Walkerman, composer and sound designer, and myself, Andy Gallo, lead writer and 2D artist. Together, we work together in Underhero, which is an RPG that we released in 2018 for PC and later in 2020 for consoles. It tells the story of a chosen hero that has failed, and an underling of the evil king takes his place as the new hero. It blended timing-based RPG combat with platforming mechanics, and to this date, Underhero has sold over 25,000 units across all platforms and has received over 90% positive reviews on Steam. So far, development for Wonder Stars has been entirely self-funded. Since Underhero's release, we've been able to build a community of players that supports our games, so we're planning a crowdfunding campaign to help with development costs. Right here, you can take a look at our production timeline. We're currently working on a vertical slice and planning our Kickstarter campaign. And then we're hoping to move to full production, then later testing and Q&A, and we're aiming for a 2023 release with continued updates. So what do we need? Well, when we made Underhero, the question was, can we make this game? But with Wonder Stars, we know we can make this game. So the question now is how we can reach as many people as possible. So that's why we need marketing support, any help with media and influencer outreach, promotion, PR, and even experience and advice. So we're looking forward to your feedback and any comments that you might have. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, y'all. That was a very dynamic slide deck that you had there. All right, Andre, you can go take it away. First commenting.
This is really cool. Like it reminds me, I grew up in the 70s, so a lot of the TV shows I watched was like old hand-drawn Japanese anime. And from an art perspective, and I'm not an artist at all, but I think don't be afraid to dirty it up, right? Like those old animes, that was part of their charm is that they were hand-drawn, so they weren't color corrected and they aren't perfect from a visual perspective, right? And I think if you really lean into that, that will give you a unique visual identity that you can own, right? So it's more of it's an homage. And then I think from a gameplay perspective, I really think the Ki system is really interesting and has a lot of potential. I also think it has the potential to spin you out and put you in a position where you might not expect some results. So I would encourage you to sort of like break them down into clearly understood blocks so that when you do the voice recording, you always know the order of what's going to be said. So you don't end up with any weird, having to stitch any weird combinations, right? Like, in your wide fire punch, that would be the way I would have it recorded, right? So your first box or category could be basically effect size, or you could figure that stuff out as you go. But then the player would have an understanding of how these things fit together and which ones potentially go with which ones go with each other, as opposed to trying and failing to put combinations together, unless you want to support a myriad amount of combinations, which I think could
Yeah.
be cost prohibitive.
No, it's the idea is to experiment with everything because since the words are going to be random during gameplay, you're encouraged to actually experiment and strategize during combat. And yeah, you also have a sorting option, so you can sort them by type of word, size, cooldown, and yeah, those categories.
Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff there. I think you could get to some really fun interactions. Also, like, I work at BioWare, so anytime I see conversation in a game, I think that's really interesting. And it's good that, you're exploring an avenue that's on a side vector that doesn't just involve combat, and potentially creating relationships, just like in those old cartoons where your first season villain is now part of your group and they're helping you, right? So there's a lot of love that's gone into this, which is nice to see.
Thank you so much.
Guys, so first thing, I'm really hyped. by this. I love the idea of putting words together and then making combos and stuff like that. And I can imagine like in the future something, I don't know, I'm a huge RPG lover, like Final Fantasy and Chrono Trigger, Chrono Cross, like everything that comes in that age, like Square Enix peak of games. And then I can imagine your game being like, we have to do this side quest to this remote island because there's this huge boss that has the word, like he's the owner of the word amazing, which we need for something else, and it's like super powerful. So I really love that idea. I also love the anime that you put in there. So I think the connection between those two is really really interesting. Um, it's also you have a really strong point. It's that you already launched the game, so the expertise that comes from launching a game, it's like a huge step ahead into doing the next one and the next one and the next one, and then us as judges, or as part of the industry, we know that you can deliver, like you can finish a game. One of the first times that I went to a GDC, I heard someone saying, making the first 90% of a game is, or take as long as making the second 90% of the game. Because that last part is what, keep us in the loop like forever and ever. So we need to start launching things. So that's a really strong point that you have, and I really like it. In terms of the story, um, could you tell us a little bit more about like the wolf and the main character? Like, what's the end goal? So, I mean, we have 10 episodes, but what do we need to do in those 10 episodes?
Yeah. So with Ringo and Wolf, we have sort of an odd couple. They join forces, but they don't want to. So we have or the thing that they're looking for is the Wonder Star map, which is, I don't know if you're familiar with the Dragon Balls. Yeah, well, so
Yep.
this magical item in this universe, but no one's really sure what it does. So Ringo is looking for her long lost brother, and Wolf is looking for other pieces of the map, but it's a bit suspicious. We don't really know what Wolf wants. So they team up in the first episode and they continue to have adventures looking for the pieces of the map. And they continue meeting other characters that will join your party. And eventually we'll have all the plot points will meet at the end. So I'm kind of afraid of saying too much too soon. I might spoil the ending. But yeah, it's an overarching plot, like an actual anime. We wrote it that way, like a series. So yeah. You want
It sounds it really sounds great. I just want to make sure that you keep, like, as in all anime and it's in all stories of old, just keep in mind the hero's journey. That's the important part of the story that you're saying, especially if you want to make it like anime like. So the Campbell theory will be really really interesting to see in there.
Yes, for sure. Thank you so much.
I also think that if you're really gonna go the anime route, you need to enforce those filler episodes or filler quests that you really feel there's just like it's funny or it may be like comical and it's outside of the story arc, but you still want to do it just for the sake of being a completionist or just for the sake of getting a little bit more lore or even more words to add to like your little dictionary that you're collecting. But I agree with Andre and Jorge. I think that you have really something really interesting here. And I really think the driver is this mechanic of using verbs to actually have a visual effect, right? Because on the design side, as a designer, I'm always looking at verbs as being mechanics, right? And we integrate the verb into that system or that feature, but you're literally taking words and using them for the animation portion and getting something out of it. So I really think it's interesting that you are collecting the words and you can use them in different orders and you can gain them from other people. There's a lot of agency there when you have to, let's say, go on a side quest for whatever reason, but you're interested and you want to engage in that because you don't know what words you're going to gain to add to your little dictionary. So one of the thing that Andre pointed out, which I also agree with, is making it clear what the category of each word is. So I saw a little bit of color coding there. There was like green and blue. I'm very big on accessibility, so you want to make sure that you have multiple ways of communicating to the player that something green means this or something blue means that. And I think one of the ways that you could do that is in your the place and the spot where you drag your word. Maybe you have assigned boxes that it's like this is the adjective, this is the verb, this is whatever it may be. And I think that'll also help the player understand that these blocks belong to this specific block, and it'll help you organize things a little bit more so it's not too sparse, right? And then maybe I don't know what it is that you have in your plan. I don't know if you can like upgrade and then have two adjective blocks and three verb blocks. I don't know how that works, but that's also very modular. It's expandable, right? Because you can keep adding two. That's not an issue. It's just a matter of communication, right? Between what the game system is saying to the player and having them understand and make that connection between what everything means. But aside from that, I'm like very excited. I'm a big anime fan, so I love the art style. Love. I think the episodic type of structure is very smart as well because it's very much in tune with anime. But it also helps you break things up. And if you want to in the future add more content, you can add like more episodes, right? So I think it's also really smart design. But overall, this is really really great, and I'm hyped. Like like Jorge said, definitely. And then I think a bunch of chat people in chat also said they want to play Underhero now, so that's good. Yeah, so
Oh,
you got some people excited too about the previous game that you made. And like Jorge said, I think that is a great like booster for y'all too, because all the experience that you gained, all the mistakes, all the challenges that you all know about making games transfers into here, and that way you can avoid some of those pitfalls and all of that. So thank you so much for sharing your pitch.
Thank you for
thank
having
you.
us.
Thank you so much for this.
You're so
So
welcome. Good
Thanks a
luck.
lot.
Bye bye. Okay, next team we have up is Be- Bebe's Adventures from Puerto Rico. Oof. How y'all doing? Is it all fun? Are you having fun? Yes.
it's really fun.
Awesome. I'm glad. Yeah, Marilis.
Can you see and hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
I gave you guys a lot of footage,
Yeah. It's all great.
so thank you. I hope it's not the whole thing because it's a lot. My name is Amarilis, and I am the creative director behind Bebes Adventures. We're actually a team of like 10 people, but I am the one Bebes Adventures is actually an adventure platformer collectathon, and it has a visual aesthetic loosely connected to my personal business Amas Bebes, since everything that you're going to be seeing is handcrafted and plush. So it feels like it's all handmade and it could be life. You're going to be playing as a handmade sub plushie that's going to be exploring this handmade world and collecting crafting items to create other playable characters that are also bebes, which are the plushies, and expand the world as well as continue in the different areas with different terrain specific abilities and be able to collect every single bebe in the game, which will be quite a few, I promise. The reason why I want this game to be created and why I think it should be made is because there aren't actually enough women in the video game industry making actual games or leading them. And also, I wanted to create a very fun and chill game because we're kind of going through a lot right now. And I wanted to make a game that could kind of like engulf this cuteness and this lightness that uh, players kind of desperately need in these times right now. I think Bebe's Adventures would be this safe haven for people who suffer from anxiety as well as stress. Like, I want to talk about this game is for as well as when it will be released. So, Bebe's Adventures target audience is millennials. The reason is because millennials have a strong attachment to the old platform, game nostalgia, and also are very heavy consumers of the things that brings them nostalgia and all these like. I have here a few references of games that I used as reference in my game, which are these old platforms and have a bunch of predecessors like 80s, 90s, thousands, which a lot of us have already experienced and played and we love. There's Adventures currently is current plan of release is on itch.io first, having a demo first. So players can engage with, play, test, and give us feedback, and then move on to a stream platform like Steam and a console release Switch. With enough demand, we'll be able to expand to Microsoft's Xbox Series X as well as the 5 for. So the Bebe's Adventures has a 4-year plan for production. I know it's a long time, but there's a reason for that. Upon further research, most companies like Triple 2 to 4 years in a platform game, especially if it's an action adventure platform. In these 4 years, we'll be releasing different patches and updates for IO as well as Steam. You're getting feedback. We work at least 2 stages that are going to be released for itch.io and Steam. You can polishing, back and input and better. On the first year, we're going to be requesting Nintendo developer pack that we can start already for the Nintendo Switch. And we'll be working on a total of at least 5 stages for this adventure game, which will be actually quite massive because of one of the references for this game is Mario Odyssey. And the current plans are to make really huge stages that the people can explore, expand on, and create many different bebes to use different abilities in and acquire new abilities, as well as have a completionist badge of getting all the bebes and items. And all the while, we will be having input from other players testing the game. So, Bebes Adventures is a platform game that will be using a fair amount of the already tried mechanics from previous adventure type games. And with the added bonus of actually being able to craft the characters that you'll be switching between while you're playing in the world. You're going to craft all of the other bebes that you both collect and can also switch between and use in different terrain specific areas as well as overall in the world. When you craft your characters, these bebes, you're going to engage on a multitude of different mini games that are going to try to give the player the same experience that I personally have in real life when I am making plushies myself. So the idea is for the player to kind of engage both in a crafting system within the game that resembles real life, because the overall visual aesthetic of the game is simulating um, the real world. Soft is fabric and plush or wood and items. Throughout the game, you will also be engaging like different enemies that will also be giving you items. You'll be also engaging different puzzles and uh, different areas with platforming complexities that you have to go in order to get to A to B. Here are some of the crafting items that you'll be able to collect. From the left to the right, it's stuffing, socks, buttons, thread, felting wool, as well as felt, sponges, and soft, fluffy wires. These are the items that you'll be able to collect, whether it's defeating enemies around the world in treasure chests, and by completing different puzzles. There are also different classes of bebes, which are for different terrain specific areas, and to also kind of like spice things up when it comes to the platforming aspect of the game. From left to right, have the normal, earth, wind, nature, water, fire, ice, and magical, which is going to be a very interesting one when it comes out. These are some like renders from the game. These are some of the characters and stage, and like as you can see, they are all very fluffy. They're very soft. We were stressing the whole idea of everything looking like plushies and everything handmade. Like as mentioned before, Bebes Adventures is loosely based on Amas Bebes, which is my personal brand of handmade items. And I wanted to show you a couple of pictures of actual items that I've done. So there is the drawing as well as the actual plush right beside it, because I wanted to give the feeling that everything that you see in the game is something that could exist in real life, that could be made, and in a general make this world a very lovable, cuddly, soft world, very comfortable, that will hopefully give people a lot of peace when you're playing them. So what do we need in order to make this game? So while I'm representing this project, we're currently a team of 10, and we would like to also hire more people to do this game. For us to be able to do this 4-year plan, we need a large amount of money incoming into the project so that we can pay salaries for our employees. We can also purchase and license licenses for software programs, so for us to continue our development, also make some upgrades to our equipment, as well as work with any kind of emergency plugins or any miscellaneous that we may come across the development process. As for profits, there are many ways to go about this, but in this slide in particular, I'm going to be talking about sales. So Bebe's Adventures currently is being planned to be sold in $30 due to its complexity and nature, and having also comparison with other indie and AAA games of a similar nature, such as from the indie department, we have Fall Guys with over 100 million sales, selling in $19.99. We also have Crypt of the Necrodancer, which also had Cadence Hyrule, which was one of the top selling games in the Nintendo eShop when it came out back in 2019, if I'm not mistaken. And we have the lowest selling one in the list, which is Unravel, with over 500,000 sales and for $19.99. From the AAA games, we have Mario Odyssey, which it's the big boy, and it's over 20 million copies worldwide, selling for $59.99. And the lowest one being Kirby's Epic Yarn, with more than 1.2 million copies sold worldwide for $49.99. In a scale of simple sales from the game, both digitally and physically, if we sell over 200,000 copies, which the average clearly shows that there is a high chance of being so, we could make double the initial investment of those 4 years and then have enough for profit. Regarding marketing and merchandising, which is also a continuation of the previous slide, one of the ways that handling profits could also be with social media promotions, sales in toys, figures, plush, clothing, accessories, and also via having crossover licensing. So this is actually one of the parts that I like most about this project, and I would really like for this to happen. Is actually the crossover licensing for bebifying certain characters from other IPs and having it in the game. Like also having all these sales done is not only promotion, it's also free promotion for the game, because there are hashtags and tags that could also be made, and that could also grow the audience overall in the community for this game. And to kind of finalize everything, I want to express that I really believe in this project, and I know it has a lot of marketing and merchandising potential, especially right there. And I wanted to actually show you. I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but let me show you. So I wanted to kind of showcase here. I actually have some already made products. These are some examples that I have already made. And I wanted to show that there is actually a lot of variety, and that I tried to my best to copy the same textures within the game to give it exactly the same look. I'm really sorry, I didn't make the tally one. But yeah, this is overall Bebe's Adventures. It's meant to be something pretty massive, but this was the presentation I had for today. So
Thank you so much, Amarilis. That was beautiful. I love all your plushies.
thanks.
Thank you. Okay, Andre or Jorge, if you would like to give feedback first.
I think this is really neat. There's a lot of upside here. Could you do me a favor and talk me through sort of like how the player chooses which baby to use for which occasion, or am I just playing as one for the entirety of a level? Like, how does that sort of break down?
Chill game. I want to give the player the opportunity to be able to play with a single Bebe and get to from point A to point B. However, I also want to give the player the option via quick selection menu, where they can kind of pick and choose certain favorite ones and they can switch between them midway in the stage at any point. Once you have the bebe crafted, you can actually switch between the ones you have crafted and you have put on your quick selection menu and use them wherever you want, as long as, of course, there isn't a terrain limitation towards it.
So I think the interesting aspect here for like platforming games sort of twofold, and I think something that would be useful is when you're playing a platformer, you're actually working out two different problems in your head, right? The first puzzle you have to solve is, how do I get from point A to point B? What's the path? And then the next thing you have to do is actually have the mechanical or the dexterity, the manual dexterity to do that, right? So I think that there's some interesting things there that I think you can leverage in your gameplay. And seeing the videos in the Twitch stream was really helpful because it sort of like helps me understand sort of like where you're trying to go from a gameplay perspective. The other thing that I think could be really, really interesting is your concept of each of the plushies, each of the babies has different elements or things that they're good at doing. And I think if you build that into the platforming and then allow the switching, so the player is an avatar that's, inhabiting them for a time, to each of the elements, each of the colors, each of the materials, each of the verticals that you have function as keys to different locks, which you can spread throughout the level. And I think that would be really, really interesting. With your comps, a lot of your comps have a narrative through line that forces the player to go from beginning to end, right? Do you have something similar, or is it more of like a sandbox type experience where you can just play around and collect new resources?
For level design, it should be like a pretty massive stage that has different areas in the level that are kind of terrain specific locked. So if you haven't crafted a bebe with, let's say, the ability to swim, then you might not be able to cross through an area that has river or an ocean, water, and so forth. So while you would still be able to get from point A to point B, let's say the boss fight at the end, you can still do that with whatever bebe you have available. But if you want to kind of like explore further, if you wish to have this completionist kind of badge to yourself, then you would have to actually go ahead and craft every single other bebe in there, which in itself, there are plans to make it rewarding because it's supposed to also work as a collective thought. So that if there is like, to throw a number, 30 plushies, there will be all divided between the classes, and the player can pick and choose their favorites, but also build kind of like a team with their quick selection venue that engulfs all the different categories, so that they can just switch on the fly and explore the entire level.
Cool, thanks.
I'm
Okay.
kind of sad because the video, in the video that I provided, you can actually see two other bebes, and one of them is an owl, and he actually glides. So it kind of showed him gliding in the stage and everything. But it's but the idea is that there are classes between the plushies, so it's not just a aesthetic thing. There is actual functionality behind it. So it's not just collecting for the sake of collecting. You can actually use them and also further expand the area that you can play in.
Okay, I have a couple of comments. So I'll start by saying that I think it's a great merchandise. It has a great merchandising potential. I think you can exploit that a lot in terms of what you said, in terms of plushies, in terms of different things. I'm a huge lover, and my sister, for example, does a lot of amigurumis. So it would be great if you could start selling, the plans, the blueprints for the plushies and everything like that. So I think it's a great potential. But at the same time, that also cuts a lot of the objective market. So one of the things you said is that you're planning to go into the millennial market, but millennial is such a big word. It's such a big chunk of people that are in the same category that usually don't like yarn and don't like knighting and don't like plushies and that kind of stuff. I mean, they like a lot more things. So I would say, and it's not like a critique. It's more like an opportunity to shine more in your specific market, which will be like millennial who like something like Yoshi's, and that was like one of the strong points that I saw in your page, that you have a clear idea of who are your references. So the way I imagine this game is like a mix between Yoshi's Woolly World for the uniqueness of the graphic part, and then Super Mario Odyssey, and then Kirby for the different plushes, the different beves that you can be. So I think that in that part it has a huge potential. Make sure that you attack that part like really deeply, like the RPG elements that can come from crafting the different beves that you can use. So, for example, if you make it like kind of like an exploration part when you can keep getting the buttons and the yarn and the threads and all the elements that you said, and then with that I can go to the craftsman or the blacksmith or something like that, and then you can create the next beve which will let you access the next part. It can get great results from a level design basis. So that I think that's one of the strongest points. I would work more in the graphic part. So my suggestion would be to start working like really hard into a vertical slice. So make sure you show the user, you show your players what the game will look like at the end. Because I think that was like, even if the game looks good from the video that you showed us, I think it lacks more like detail in the textures. It lacks like a little bit of those things that make the game rich, and that was something that, for example, Yoshi's Wally World gave us. Like before, I remember the first trailers, I was so hyped because I could see something from the amigurumi that I love. I could see something in a video game. So I think you have the potential to do that. I will just work a little bit more in that part. And then that, like all the things that you showed us, connect like really great with the merchandising thing. So I think it's a great path. I love the idea that you're planning to compete with big titles, with Nintendo and with that. But make sure you have a strong marketing team and that you know how you do things, because you also talked about selling 200,000 copies, like 200K copies, and that's really hard to do. I know you have the example of games that have sold millions and thousands of copies, but then for indies like us, when you go into the market and you start to realize that it's such a harsh environment and it's really hard to go above the 10K, the 20K, and then you're talking about 200K. So just make sure that you have the correct marketing team behind you to back that number.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I also echo what Jorge said. Definitely try to analyze even further. If you can even hone in like very specifically, like what's your user story? What is the profile or the person that you are trying to get, and what do they do? What do they like? What do they don't like? Like I think creating like user profiles for the type of of audience you want to target will be really helpful in trying to figure out what are some extra things that you can add, some perhaps even some areas that you perhaps have not looked into before that could really help you define the trajectory, your roadmap better, your marketing strategy better, and all those things. I definitely think, like you said, it's like a massive game. So, from an outsider perspective is like, whoa, the scope of this is huge, and like 4 years like seems like a long time, but in indie years that's like so small because I know how hard indie games can be. So definitely I would advise you to be open to, like Jorge said, doing a vertical slice, and like what does it look like to have those mini games that you were describing, like what is the mechanic of that, and really showing that off so that people, literally you're selling the mechanic and the gameplay at that point. So like, here's how you craft something, here are the little puzzles that you can do where you can play and unlock things, here is like combat where you are defeating something and you're grabbing those resources, like all those things that you described. At this point it would be super helpful to start figuring out what does that look like in gameplay and engine, like are things gonna need to be changed, like versus like the concepts that you were thinking of. And that will really help you figure out what the scope will be so that you can say, okay, my vertical slice is going to be making 3 bebes in 2 regions, and these are all the things there, and that's what I'm going to use then to pitch to like a publisher to give me the millions that I need and all of that stuff, and get your PR package and the agency behind you and all of that. People love to see like gameplay. It's like, if I can see how I'm going to be engaging with it, that'll help me even more pitch in like Kickstarter or wish listed on Steam. The more you can show about how to play the game, the easier it'll be for you to grab that audience and get them enlisted to buy the game. But overall, it's a beautiful concept, and I love your plushies. I think, like Jorge said, you're gonna do great even just selling those. You could even make money that would help with development if you wanted to sell merch, because I think that just gets people excited, and people love cute things. So thank you so much, Amarilis, for your pitch.
Thank you. Nice.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Thanks.
All right. Up next, oh, sorry. 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 Up next, we have Team Candle Knight from Mexico, who have a really interesting game project in the works.
Hi everyone, how are you doing? I hope you're having a great time in this event. I am Hector Parra and I am both the co-founder and project manager for Drachma Studios. We're working very hard on our debut title, Candle Knight. Candle Knight is a 2.5D Metroidvania in which players take control of an enchanted candle holder as they explore an abandoned magical castle. The flame on his helmet represents his health and the power being used, but more on that later. For now, I would like to introduce some of the faces behind Drachma Studios.
Hola a todos, mucho gusto. I am Mario Vallarta. I'm the co-founder of Drachma Studios and also Candle Knight's 3D animator.
Hello everyone, my name is Marisa and I am the programming director of Candle Knight.
I'm Alberto Ruco and I'm the gameplay programmer.
Hi, my name is Derek Hinojosa and I'm the composer for Candle Knight.
My name is Hugo Laviada. I am the game designer as well as sound designer for Candle Knight.
Hi, my name is Angela and I am the environment artist on Candle Knight.
If you would like to know more about Candle Knight, you can always follow us on social media. We'd like to thank the organizers of this event for letting us be a part of it, and we hope everyone is having a wonderful time. Stay safe everyone and take care.
And foremost, hola conexión, mucho gusto, and thank you for having. Right. Okay.
Okay, now we see. You're all good.
Okay. Okay. Is there going to be a countdown? Okay. Hi. So first and foremost, hola conexión, mucho gusto, and thank you for having us here. We've seen some truly amazing games today, all being developed by incredible and talented Latinx people, and I couldn't be more proud to be able to add one more to this list. So I proudly present to you Candle Knight, our debut title as a Mexican dev team, and to describe it very broadly, it's a 2.5D Metroidvania that's being developed in Unreal Engine 4. We're currently developing it for PC, but we plan to port it to consoles as well. Our planned release date is in the first quarter of 2022 as an early access title, and sorry, and the approximate game length of it is around 6 hours for the Golden Path. And now you may wonder, who are the faces behind this idea? And well, this is the team that sparked the flame on Candle Knight. This is Trackman Studios, a game development studio that's based in Yucatan, Mexico. We're a passionate, talented, and diverse group of developers with the simple goal of making amazing games and unforgettable experiences. We originally started out as a group of friends with a simple yet strong vision. We wanted to change the perspective about game development in Mexico and Latin America by creating unique projects that spark players' imaginations worldwide. And with this idea in mind, Candle Knight was ignited, and Candle Knight, in few words, could be described as Bloodstain's 2.5D gameplay meets a link between worlds mind-bending puzzles. And we know that saying this comes with some considerations because what do Metroidvania players look for in a game? What do they want in a Metroidvania? After some market research that we did in pre-production, we came to the conclusion that our audience is mainly ranging from 21 to 34 years old, and they look for games that have interesting exploration with intricate and vertical maps, punishing combat that feels good to play and is responsive. And we also noticed that they mostly enjoy Metroidvanias that have a nice balance of puzzles and challenges, and are neither very puzzle heavy nor only combat oriented. And with this in mind, we designed the pillars of our game. These are the basics. So the story follows an enchanted candle holder who suddenly awakens in an abandoned magical castle and, driven by curiosity, starts exploring it. Along the way, our protagonist discovered that its main purpose is to bring back the light to the castle using the flame on his helmet. This magical flame will also help him use different abilities. One of these is the ability to enter paintings and transform from 3D to 2D. Candle Knight can use these paintings to solve puzzles, complete challenges, or as shortcuts to move around the castle faster. The paintings in the game are being custom made by our concept artist and play with themes like fire, light, and so on for the puzzles. Candle Knight can also find new armor pieces to upgrade his health and special abilities. Upon dying, players lose these upgrades, so they must make their way back to the spot where they died to recover them. But unlike other games, these corpses don't disappear until the previous upgrades have been retrieved. And finally, the length of the flame on Candle Knight's helmet indicates his health, and the color of the flame represents the power that's being used. Which also brings me to the most important part of the gameplay loop. This is the Ignis system. What is the Ignis system? It basically consists of a meter and 3 states. The meter is filled with ignition when Candle Knight does certain actions like dealing damage or standing near heat sources. But when you're not doing any of those, the meter slowly decreases over time, and taking damage will decrease a larger portion of it. Special abilities also cost ignition, so players should be mindful on how they spend it, because it also determines your state. As I said earlier, there are 3 states, and they are divided, as you can see on the right of the presentation. The meter is divided in three, and it defines all of the states. So in the first state, Candle Knight's attacks are weak, but his defenses are high. In the second one, Candle Knight hits harder, but his defenses are lowered by a bit. And in the third state, that's where Candle Knight's attacks are his most powerful, but he also receives high amounts of damage when he is hit. As players grow more comfortable with the game, they will be able to stay or switch between Ignis states at will. But newcomers will probably want to stay mostly in the first two states, at least at the beginning of the game while they get the hang of it. And well, now that I've gone over the gameplay, I'd like to talk about the timeline of production, of development. Back in the second half of 2019, we decided to retake an idea from 2016 and flesh it out into a full game, starting with the pre-production in the summer. During this early phase, we did some research and defined the scope and basics of the game that came together nicely in the game design document. 2020, as you are well aware, was a difficult year for everyone, but thankfully we were able to complete pre-production with a playable prototype and begin production. Our goal was to make a vertical slice as a milestone for 2020, and we did that, but since most of us had full-time jobs, progress was a little bit slower than we wanted, and the global situation didn't help either, but we made it. Now that we are halfway through 2021, we're still in development. We have all 3 assets completed, and 60% of the game is finished already. We know there's still a lot of work to be done, but we are aiming for a pre-alpha and a playable alpha by the end of the year, so that we can work on QA testing, polishing, and optimization, among other things, starting next year. And so, with all of this information that we had, we were left with just one question. How could the game actually do in the market? And for this answer, we looked into a massive list of games that fit our criteria and would be either direct or indirect competition for us, and how they had sold until April of 2021. While the most obvious comparison may be Hollow Knight, because of the title maybe, we felt like Bloodstained was closer to our game because of its 3D look, and also the 2.5D gameplay. We also looked at other games with either a similar aesthetic or theme and how they did. And because of all of this information, we believe that Candle Knight has an enormous potential in the market for people that already love Metroidvanias, and also for people that are trying to get into the Metroidvania genre, because players are in direct and active control of the difficulty with the Ignis system. Can you hear me? I'm sorry. They're trying to get into the Metroidvania genre because players are in direct and active control of the difficulty with the Ignis system. And also, dying isn't as punishing as other Metroidvanias. And so, last but not least, please take a look into the actual gameplay of Candle Knight in this video here.
Candle Knight is a 2.5D Metroidvania in which players take control of an enchanted candle holder in an abandoned castle where an unknown threat has taken over. Candle Knight can walk, jump, double jump, dash, slide down walls, attack, and shoot projectiles. The flame on his helmet represents his health, and its color represents the power being used. Each press of the attack button is a swing of his sword, and 3 consecutive attacks result in a combo. Candle Knight can also obtain upgrades through exploration, and whenever he dies, he leaves behind a corpse with any obtained upgrades. Players must make their way back to the spot where they died if they want to recover them. Candle Knight can also enter the paintings in the castle, which he can either use as shortcuts or to solve puzzles. We hope you enjoy this quick glimpse into Candle Knight's mechanics. Thank you for your time.
Oh, sorry. And now that we're finished with this presentation, I want to thank you for your attention. I want to thank my team at Drachma for all their hard work, and also for calming my nerves before this presentation. And thank you, Conexión. This is a great opportunity for all of us in the Latinx community. We're truly honored to be a part of this, and I'm sure we'll see some amazing games next. Thank you.
Thank you, Mario. That was great.
Thank you.
Did a great job. No nerves there.
Thanks a lot.
You're welcome. All right, Andre, take it away.
So there's a lot of love that's got into this concept. I can tell just from the very beginning, like your guys' passion for not just for the sort of birth of your gameplay studio and your future, but also the genre, I think. And from a gameplay perspective, I think that there's a lot to like here. You're paying homage to your comps, but also making these mechanics something that is unique to you in the way that you want to express the gameplay. I think my reaction would be for these types of games, the pacing of your level is really the challenge here, right? So I think you have enough player mechanics that you can create a variety of content to get the player through a level once. But one of the things I think that is something that maybe y'all should consider or not, it's just friendly talk, but like when it comes to Metroidvania, one of the things that's really encouraging about that genre is getting something that then you're like, oh, I can go back and I've unlocked all this new content in the level that I could only look at previously. And I think that that's something that when we talk about Metroidvania games that, some have it, some don't. So I'm not really, are they Metroidvania because they're 2.5D? Are they Metroidvania? Like, nailing, I think, that reason to come back and go through the level from a different perspective with a different ability, maybe even a different light that you can shine that unlocks new parts of the level would be really interesting, I think, and reward your players for re-exploring, which is, I think, what Metroid really, when you think about Metroid, other than the female protagonist, which is huge, what they brought back, what they really brought to the game audience was going back to where you were and then experiencing it from a whole new perspective. But this is a super exciting. I mean, there's a lot of positivity here. It's a lot to riff off of.
Thank you.
Okay, guys. So a couple of comments. So the first one, let me congratulate you because the work you did with the, knowing your market. I think it's incredible. I mean, we have a lot of Metroidvania games in the market, but the important part is not, this is another Metroidvania, but rather than that, you took like what makes a Metroidvania a great game, and then you took those 3 bullet points, and then you stick to them, and then you started creating like a gameplay around those things that make a great experience, a great gameplay experience, and then put some ideas around it. So that's really good, and that's really important for you, that you just did. One of the things that I really liked about the game was and I think that's the main differentiator between your game and other games that I've seen in this genre. It's the thing you do with the frames. Like you can go to a frame and then you can flip it. You can start exploring, start playing with it. And I think that's a great addition to the gameplay, because that way you can exploit more the explorers part of your players. So you have the achievers, and then you have the fighters, and then the explorers. And I think for a Metroidvania, the thing that Andrew said, that it's really important. Like you want to come back to that level with a different light or with different mechanics, with different powers that you can that way unlock different parts of the map, and then hopefully we'll get more rewards by doing so. So I would focus a lot on that part, which is really important. I will suggest for you, this is my personal opinion, but I think the game looks too dark. And again, this is like my personal opinion. I know that people like a lot of dark games. I think this is like way too dark, and I would love to see more parts of the environment, because it seems like you guys worked so hard on the environment, so hard on the visual effects, for example, that I love. So it would be really great to see more detailed parts of that environment, of that backgrounds, of that parallax that you can get from using a 2.5D game. So that would be one. And then the other, I'm pretty sure you played it, but have a look again at Hollow Knight. So Hollow Knight, it's like the perfect example of how you make a great level design on a 2D platform game. And then what makes Hollow Knight like a great game is that, again, you can go back to the maps, you get new abilities, and then you explore the map on a different way. And it's open enough that there is no like linear path to it. That would be my other suggestion for you. Like, don't make it too linear. Like, start like if it's an exploration game, then you can take different paths that will take you at the end to the same, for example, a boss or stuff like that, or powers or level or whatever. But uh, the idea, the potential that the players get from taking a different path than their friends or other players, it's what makes, like a great point in exploring this kind of games. So congratulations.
Sure. Thank you very much for your feedback. We're actually trying to make the game a little bit lighter in the illumination side because yeah, we know that in the video it looks a little bit too dark, but yeah, we're working on that. That's that's a build that's kind of old. The footage is kind of old, and we're working on having just the right illumination to make the background stand out, but thank you very much for for everything.
Jorge and Andre really gave you great feedback, and I definitely agree. I know that you showed in the gameplay, I could definitely see with the candles color and like green and blue that there is like, it seems like there's going to be new abilities that you can unlock and then you can switch them out. And I definitely would say, as you continue to work and create your next trailer and whatever it may be, that you include some of that stuff in there to like really show your audience, okay, these are the abilities that are going to get unlocked, so that you have that loop of coming back. Because like Andre and Jorge said, like when I think Metroidvania, the first thing that I said, okay, it's abilities or things or features that I can use to go back into different places and unlock different doors, open chests, whatever it may be. So you really want to make sure that you can communicate that with the visual materials that you're going to be sharing with folks, right? So whatever that may be in that color change, or if it's something else, a different weapon, different attack, whatever it may be, make sure that you're communicating that and that it's paced properly, right? Because the worst thing that you can do is unlock a whole bunch of Metroidvania stuff like 2 hours within gameplay, and then what happens to the other 4 hours is like I already have everything. So that like that ramp up and like of that that it's exciting, right? Because it's like, okay, I have a green light now, and then 2 hours later, oh, now it's blue and I can do something completely different. Keeping that excitement going for the player is going to be really, really important, and it hooks them into the rest of the gameplay. So you want to make sure that you're communicating that and that's coming across. But overall, I think your Ignis system is great. I think having visual like health bar with the candle, very reminiscent of like Dead Space when you had like your health bars in the back, like that type of visual, like breaking like the norm, right? With just like UI, but you're adding some like visual like embodied features into the character or the environment. I think that's really smart and always like super exciting to see. So y'all are doing great, and I just wish you the best in your development, because I know you're gonna just push the boundaries on a lot of really cool, neat things in the Metroidvania genre that people don't really explore often. So definitely keep doing that. And again, level design, that's going to be your number one priority in the game. So make sure that all the passion that you're putting into the game's design is also translated into the level design itself, and that there is cool traversal and things that you can do that will invite the player to keep coming back to different places to see if they missed anything or things like that. But overall, awesome job. Thank you so much, Mario.
Thank you. Your feedback is very welcome. Thank you very much for all of your points. Yeah, thank you.
Not a problem.
Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Thank you.
Goodbye. Thank you.
Alrighty. Up next is our last presenter of the investor panels. It is the Dreamer's Princess, a project coming from Puerto Rico.
Hello, and good afternoon from Puerto Rico. I'm Carlos Orama, also known as Sole CDEV, and I'm the developer behind The Dreamer's Princess. I started toying with game development when I was 8 years old, when the games that I had accessible to me were becoming less appealing to me. I told myself that I could probably mix and match the parts that I did enjoy and make something that others could also enjoy. Years later, while in my last year of college, I started working on a classic bullet hell that has since evolved into The Dreamer's Princess, a game which blends bullet hell with maze exploration and RPG elements. I wanted to make bullet hell accessible for everyone, while providing the same sense of split-second anxiety that bullet hells are known for, while also giving the players a sense of growth that in due time will allow them to slice through the game at their will, all while experiencing a story that dives into self-doubt, self-loathing, hopelessness, and the triumph of overcoming said feelings. Thanks once again to Latins in Gaming for making this dream a possibility. I hope that you have enjoyed the pitches thus far. I hope that you come to enjoy The Dreamer's Princess.
Huh? Where am I? What even is this place?
It's not a place. We're in a realm beyond our own. One where souls dream. Everyone you see here, regardless of how they look, is someone dreaming, and their circumstances shows in their appearance. Most of us here rely on magic to fend for ourselves. But others, whatever their instincts tell them.
In here, you either move on or get consumed by your own thoughts. Eventually, you'll encounter another. If you can defeat that person, you can liberate that person and keep moving. If all goes right for you, you'll return unharmed. However, the longer you take, the harder it'll be to return
home.
Well, first things first, good evening. Thank you, Latins in Gaming, for allowing us all to participate. Thank you, judges, for being able to be here and take our pitches. I'm Carlos Orama. I am the developer behind The Dreamer's Princess. So, I am also known as Sole CDev. I am a solo game developer who has helped other companies develop and publish at least 2 games. I am also a fan of game jams, or as I like to call them, peanut butter game jam sandwiches. I am also a game design experimentalist, and also really enjoy when game designs and game concepts are experimented with. And I also like when something gives a challenge to me, and I also like making challenges for the players. Pardon me, I think I have a technical issue. There we go. So, what is The Dreamer's Princess? The Dreamer's Princess is a maze-exploring bullet hell shooter with RPG elements set in a world of dreams. The story dives into themes of self-consciousness, emotional turmoil, and the after effects that can come with it. It was inspired by games like Rogue and its offspring NetHack, Metreus, the Adrian Odyssey series, and the Touhou series. It was also greatly inspired by the demos. Sorry, what?
Should we?
Is it
We're
a-
good?
Oh. All right. Am I audible now? Am I still audible? All right. 3 slices back. How many slides back? Sorry. Would this one be okay? All right. So I apologize for that. I do not understand what happened. So what is Dreamer's Princess? The Dreamer's Princess is a maze-exploring bullet hell shooter with RPG elements set in a world of dreams, which story likes to dive into the subconsciousness, emotional turmoil, and the after effects that can come with it. It was inspired by Rogue, the classic console-based game, its offspring NetHack, Metroid, the Adrian Odyssey series, and the Toho series. It was also greatly inspired by Demoscene and chiptune music, also known as retro music. So, being a mix and match of a few genres, the goal is to create a shooter where any player is free to play as they like and adapt and benefit from their playstyles. And being a bullet hell known for their difficulty, the intent is to also make the game accessible and playable for all players of any skill level. So the main core loop is that the player will enter a maze, survive, fight, find a key, and escape said maze, and all of the stages are procedurally generated, providing a fair amount of challenge and reward. The part of the RPG elements are sliced into 2. They are the basic level up mechanics that also provides bonuses for completing smaller specific goals that are tailored to a playstyle. These include, but are not limited to, defeating every enemy encountered, beating a stage without being seen, beat a stage without taking any damage, and obtain every treasure that you may find. The stage difficulty will vary depending on how the player plays. For example, the difficulty can ramp up when they are reckless, and the game can also be quite tense when avoiding enemies at all costs. However, they can also just try and flank the stages and receive extra experience. So the other slide of the RPG element is that every few levels they can acquire skills, which they can equip up to 3 active skills and 1 main shot, which will count as a weapon of sorts, and a variety of passive skills that do not take up a slot. So the challenges that the game provides includes, but are not limited to, stage time limits, bosses that play in a traditional bullet hell fashion, that are 5 of them in each story. There are also in-stage mini-bosses when certain requirements are met, being, for example, short on time, receiving every, let's say, fragment, which is one of the collectibles, and so on and so forth. They are also unlockable secret bosses when you collect enough fragments, and these can also provide the player with more skills for them to play around with. The player, on the other hand, can experiment with different skills and main shots that allows them to exploit their skills and exploit enemy weaknesses. And as the game's nature that allows the player to simply play as they like, they can actually decide to be either over-leveled or under-leveled. There is no cap at this moment. So there are some extra mileage that the player can get out of the game. First off, being a short story, since there are 5 main chapters in each story, a speedrun playthrough, is estimated to go as fast as approximately 6 hours. The player can also freely re-explore past areas if they decide, so that they can experiment with their skill combination, exploit enemy weaknesses as well, and grind up to a certain cap. So, of course, you're not going to be able to explore the first area and grind all the way to a level 100. The game still needs to provide you a challenge. So there is also, speaking of challenges, there is also a non-static number float difficulty. That means that instead of just selecting easy, normal, hard, lunatic, or critical, or however you like to call them, you have a float, a decimal between 0 and 1 that will determine various parts of the game. This is your difficulty selection. There are also multiple endings depending on your performance and your choices. And replayability is a side effect that is a result of all of these things coming together, providing a different experience each new game. Currently, in the state of development, we have a small roadmap. Mind you, there is a demo readily available at HIO. The link will be provided later. So, currently, the important goals are optimizing the hardware for lower end, optimizing the game for lower end hardware, because not everybody has a 2060 to play, for example. Neither do they have the latest and greatest hardware or CPU to play with. Other goals are to lower the barrier to entry for new players that are not used to either dungeon crawling or bullet hells, and maintain the same challenge for experienced players. I am also constantly trying to improve the feel of the game based on player feedback, so that is greatly appreciated. Up next, I will be working on the remaining story bosses and the extra bosses as well. Then, once those are completed, the rest of the game will be developed. So the other stages, the stratum, the assets, the enemy patterns, and so this is a bit of a vicious cycle of testing and player feedback. Right now, as I said, the demo is available and is intended precisely to aid in the situation. Once the base game is complete, I intend to move on to non-code works, which include extra art, music, and other things. Pardon me. So the future, the budget, and the risk. Currently, the bigger priorities besides core development are art and music, and proper marketing. The long-term goals are a second story scenario which is already written, just not developed, that also provides a higher difficulty for those who want to seek more out of the game. Range higher goals include release on the Switch, which is the original target. A higher end goal is a full story voice acting and other consoles. However, the known risks, at least that I have noticed, are possible disconnects with the player due to the mix and match of different kinds of games that can, I guess, it alter the player's expectations so far. However, Toho fans that have played the demo in the older versions have come to really enjoy what the game brings to the table. Other known issues that are current, and this is part of the vicious cycle, is that current performance can vary. Right now, a lot of has improved on that. However, I am still worried for lower end. So one of the possible solutions are either multi-threading or maybe switching the bullet hell aspect to an entity component system structure. So there is existing content. I do not know if it was presented at the beginning though. So these are some of the screenshots. The boss on the far right has been updated as of last week. So if you would like to test how difficult the game can scale, feel free to try. The HIO demo is available at this link, and there is also a trailer that was also provided for the Unidos event last October. I'm going to. Should I post these in the chat? Hello?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I will in a moment. So I believe that is the end of the presentation. Thank you so much for your patience and your time and tolerating this presentation. You can find me at SoleilCdev over at Twitter. You can contact me at soleilcdev@gmail.com, and you can also see more details of the project at soleilcdev.com.
Thank you so much, Carlos. You did great.
Thank you.
Sorry about the technical difficulties.
Oh, no worries.
I
It
know
gave
that's
me
always
enough
a
time
little
to breathe.
scary.
Yes.
Alrighty then. Jorge or Andre, take it away for feedback.
Man, there's so many cool games that we're seeing today. I kind of feel I've got an embarrassment of riches here. This is fantastic stuff. Yeah, man, no worries. Your game reminds me a lot of twin stick shooters from back in the day, back in my childhood. One of my favorites was like Robotron, and eventually its spiritual successor was what was that one? The game show one. Anyways, the name's escaping me. A long, long time ago, when I started my career, I worked on a game called Robotron X, and it was a 3D version of the top-down Robotron made by the original Robotron team. I was testing it, and your game really, really reminds me of that. So the comments I give will be sort of like in line with that. And I encourage you to look up some videos because I think it could help unlock some things for you. One of the things
Sure
that's
thing.
really, yeah, one of the things that's really, I think, important in these types of games is understanding the enemy that's coming at you and what it can do and what you need to do to deal with its pattern or its weaknesses and your strengths. And again, I bring up Robotron because they were fantastic at that. Their archetypes were clearly defined and they never deviated from that. And while it wasn't such a bullet hell game, it still, I think, gave that type of move or die kind of gameplay that is really popular in bullet hells and shmups. And going by your dev cycle, I think something that could be really helpful for you to unlock the potential that's in this concept is making sure to nail the main character's movement and shooting, because to me that's really the core of what your game is in terms of gameplay. And how the main character interacts with the enemies, how the player then realizes what they need to do, especially if you're leaning on randomly generated levels. You need a common through line to help players along, right? So they understand when they see the big green guy. I'll just use a Robotron example. The Hulk from Robotron was this big green dude, obviously the Hulk. And when you shot at it, you couldn't kill it, you just knocked it back. But you could position them to block other units because they couldn't hurt it either, right? So you would use that as a way to buy yourself a little bit of safe space to then look for the next target of opportunity or rescue the human, because that was what that game's about. But I think that there's a lot of potential here, and I think the excitement in the chat is about really the idea of like taking a bullet hell, putting it in 3D, and then figuring out how to navigate the challenges that are being presented to you. And again, like, we're humans, we like matching patterns, and that's something that we're good at doing. And I think that you can come up with a bunch of really neat gameplay, tie it to clear, strongly defined archetypes, and then let people figure out what they need to do to make their way through the level. That's about what I have. I hope you find it useful.
Pardon the interruption. Thank you, first things first. I have been really restraining myself on the difficulty, quite honest. I updated the boss, like I mentioned, and I had to play through it in level 1 and barely moving to provide myself a sense of, yeah, this is too hard for someone who's not ready to be moving or doesn't get a good grasp. But there are multiple parts of the game that I really want to, I guess you could say, skyrocket the difficulty, because I do want to provide that visual aesthetic that Touhou is known for. They provide wonderful patterns that they kind of enamored you with the image that you're seeing, but you have clear in your mind as a player, you either move or you die. That is something that I'm not struggling with, but I am seeking out to do as soon as humanly possible.
Great. Okay, I'll start by saying, so bullet hell with strategy, dungeon crawler components, and potential RPG options on it. I mean, count me in for that. It sounds really, really, really fun. One of the one of the things I saw in the videos, and you talked about that, and I think it's a really interesting point. It's the procedural levels. I think it's a great idea, but as all bullet hells, try not to make it impossible. So most of the bullet hells that I have played, and I do enjoy them a lot, but then I start enjoying them. They have like a good difficult curve, but then comes a point where it's exponentially goes up, and then I stop having fun. I stop having fun, and then I start stressing way too much up to the point that I just close the game. So in this case, if you're dealing with procedural levels, and then you have to have in mind that you still have to play with the difficulty of the game, then I think that would be like a difficult thing to do. So just be mindful of what you're doing and what you are designing in that regard. Um, Another thing that I really liked about your game is that you mix like emotional turmoil with bullet hell, and then like the cherry on the top, you put the chiptune music. So I think those three things are just like greatest cocktail to have in a bullet hell game. So kudos to that. I think it sounds really good. And then to finish my feedback, and to Andres' point, um, people do enjoy patterns. We look like as human beings, we look for them. We search patterns in life, in everything that's around us, and then the fun of it comes when we anticipate them. And that goes hand in hand with what you said about uh, tweaking the difficulty of the game, like specifically for each person, depending on the decisions that they do, or what they keep, or whatsoever. But please do that part well. I mean, the part where you can anticipate based on some feedback that you're getting from the boss, and from the environment as it is. The last thing in terms of mechanics that I really want to make a point on, it's that people think that bullet hell it's like all about dealing with the bosses and then killing them. But the reality is that bullet hell it's a genre that's all about evading. It's all about having the defensive countermeasures to evade, and then to deal with whatever bullets the boss is firing at us. Um, so I just wanted to make sure that you have like a really good evasive mechanic. So for example, in a great game that I love, Enter the Gungeon. I think they're like a really, really, really great point that those guys nail it was the evasive movement. So it's not only about shooting and then having great weapons and bigger and bigger and bigger upgrades, but it's more about how can you be on this defensive part and then counterattack your boss. And then that's like a really small detail that people tend to pass on by when they're designing bullet hells. So please take a look at that, and I think your games looks great.
Thank you very much. Yeah, that last part is something that I am also toying with. I always get a lot of feedback, sometimes saying the player moves too fast, the player moves too slow. I am considering also doing like a dodge. In fact, in this last update, there is a dodge skill that, while it takes some HP, because that's the skill cost, it allows you to move faster in one direction. And that's the kind of it's not the end goal, but it's a feature that I would like to keep eventually. But to your point, improving movement is something that I'm working on. Also, a small detail also that I forgot. The current demo has music that inspires exactly what the bosses and the stages are supposed to feel like. So the boss theme is by Vert. Take off.
I definitely agree with Jorge here. It's all bullet hell to me is all about strategy. It's figuring out what is my optimal path to defeating something, avoiding getting hit, right? Somebody in chat mentioned it, and I was also gonna mention it too. If you can watch some gameplay of Returnals, um, I think it's only for PS5, so that kind of sucks for those of us who cannot find PS5s. But the reality is that their boss design, they have the orbs, those spinning orbs that come in all patterns and colors, and they're there to like distract you and like freak you out. Um, that type of stuff. I think you're gonna gain a lot of good like even just I don't know, just good references to figuring out what did that team do to be able to encourage the player to use their dodge to try to figure out how they can jump or figure out different ways, different strategies to defeating something or avoiding something or getting to a side to be able to launch their attacks and things like that. So I think that would be a great reference for you to look at. Nier Automata is another good one, another good bullet hell that has that weird 2D and 3D perspectives. It's all good feedback for you to see what they did and what worked for them, and possibly what you can adapt that will help you balance. Because what I can definitely say with bullet hell is you're stretching that balance between, is it too hard? Is it challenging but possible? Is it challenging and just feels impossible? And then people would just rage quit and not play the game. So it's always a dance that you're just going to have to be doing between back and forth. And don't be afraid to have an option in some type of menu where somebody can just go on easy mode and just defeat the boss and get it over with. Or somebody goes into expert super hard mode and then it's like super, super impossible, right? Because you have players like that, they just want to switch it up because they just can't do it or it's just too challenging, but they still want to play the game. So don't be afraid as well to have just options where people can just adjust it per what they would like to do, but definitely design it for your optimal sense of design, which would be like, I want it to be this difficult. I want to push the player to go to the left or the right or to do aerial attacks, whatever it may be with your design goals. Just make sure that you're dancing between that balance, right? And it's finding what you think is best, but also what is the best experience. So I think you're doing already fantastic by having the game be on itch and getting playtesting feedback right away and implementing that feedback, because that's literally like the golden ticket for you, is getting the game out there and hearing what people have to say. Because you as a designer and like us developers, we feel a certain type of way and we think that the game should be a certain type of way. But then when we put it in the hands of other people, they're like, no, like you cannot do it this way. This feels like garbage, or this feels really good. And it's maybe an idea that you didn't think you wanted to go in. So all those things, I think it's great. Keep doing more of that and keep releasing updates and getting feedback from people. Use the Latinx and Gaming Discord to get people to give you feedback too. Like use as many avenues as you can, because that's really what's going to help you balance that challenge that you're finding of figuring out balance. It just needs to come from other people, not just you. So it's not, you don't need to figure it all out by yourself. Allow other people to give you that and help you get there to where you want to be. But definitely excited about this, and it reminded me of Returnal. So that's good feedback for you, right? It's like the bullet hell that I played the like last. So yeah, definitely super excited, and thank you so much for your pitch, Carlos.
Thank you very, very much for your feedback. It's invaluable, to be quite honest.
You're very welcome.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you so much. May you have a good evening.
Yeah, you too.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Alrighty, so with that, that was the last pitch for the investor panel round. So just stick with us a few more minutes as us judges go back and deliberate a little bit, and we're going to announce the winners of the investor pitch. So stick with us. Please put your comments in there in the chat. We'll read them as we deliberate, but we will be back soon. Thanks for sticking around.
Is the kingdom mighty sound?
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for being patient while we were deliberating our decisions. We're just so happy that for all the people that joined us, I saw that max viewership was like over 100. So thank you so much for being around and just supporting the community, right? Because it's really all about supporting games being made by our people from our countries and hoping that they just succeed in everything that they do and seeing all the passion. We were definitely touched and moved and motivated by every single project that was presented today. So we want to thank each viewer and each team member, each team that presented today. Y'all are doing fantastic work. And as a, so- you guys are making me laugh on chat. Thank you for watching there. So as a big thank you from Latinx in Gaming, the first thing that we want to announce is that every single team that presented today will be getting $500 from on behalf of Latinx in Gaming as a thank you for being part of the investor panel. And that money is to go towards your development, to go whatever your needs may be. We're just hoping that you can use that little bit to just help you with your games, or if you need a new mouse or something like that. We just want to say thank you for participating, and that's just our thank you gift to you all. So we hope that that was a nice announcement for all of you guys out there. I see that people are excited. Alrighty, so it's like drum roll. I'm so nervous to be sharing these news with you. All right. So I will announce our second place winner. So we will be doing first and second place. So our second place winner for the investor panel pitch monies is Wonder Stars. We are so excited about your game and we cannot wait to see it get made. And we really, really believe in what you're putting together. And we really think it is going to resonate with so many people. We all love anime. We think that moving words around as a mechanic is really interesting. And there's a lot that you can do there. So we are excited to support you in giving you second place. So a little side note on that. Second place will include the money, the $500 that everybody is getting. So you're getting the second place prize plus the $500 that every team is getting. So you're getting a little bit more. So we're excited to be able to give that to you. So more details on all of that will be shared to you within the next few days. So just keep a lookout on your emails and we'll get all of that sorted with you. Alrighty. And then for our first prize, we're gonna drum roll. Our first prize is gonna be to Hypnagogia. We really, really believe in Ruth, your project, the commentary that you are making on healthcare work in Bolivia. There's so much there that we really believe that that project should get made. And we really believe that you can perhaps just change the view on so many things. And we really wanted to give you that opportunity for you to create that and hopefully get some contractors to help you because we know that you are solo deving that project. But we really believe in what you have to say there and just the infinite possibilities of interactions that can happen in the world and how the story can change and different endings that you can get. We really believe in the project and we hope that first prize monies can help you get to where you want to take your project. So thank you so much to everybody for participating. We enjoyed it. I think all the judges here, we all enjoyed being a part of this and giving you feedback. And we hope that you continue to make games, get inspired, and just do what you do best, which is be you. Thank you so much, y'all. Thanks for being a part of the panel. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks for having us.